After suffering a defeat to Betis over the weekend, Real Madrid is slowly seeing the league slip through their hands. To add fuel to the fire, Dani Ceballos will definitely miss our clash against Atleti on Tuesday. Jude Bellingham is also suspended for this first leg, and Valverde doesn't look like he's going to make it in time for this clash. I'm hearing mixed things, but as far as reports from Spain this morning, it looks like Federico Valverde may miss this clash, which will be a huge blow because if there's ever a time you need him, it's right now. So if Fede doesn't make it for this match against Atleti, that would be 3 changes from the side that played Manchester City. Since Carlo Ancelotti joined Real Madrid in 2021, he has faced Atleti 9 times, but has managed to win less than 50% of those games, with only 4 wins. Every manager in Europe has a bogey team or a manager that they just cannot get wins against. And for Carlo Ancelotti, it's this side we're playing on Tuesday. For Pep Guardiola and his last 14 matches against Tottenham, he's only won 6. Football is very much about styles make fights. And in this video, I'll break down the 5 keys to victory for Real Madrid in the Champions League. Make sure you stick around to the end because I think number 5 is truly critical and important for us to get through to the next round. Let's get into it. Number 1, let's quickly take a look at these goals that we scored against Atleti in our last few games. The common pattern in these goals are Real Madrid created these opportunities from the wide space, but although Diego Simeone likes to go to a back 5 out of possession to prevent teams from having space in the out wide, and oftentimes it's a 2v1 situation, that's how you exploit them. You need to be able to take them on in those wide spaces and put the ball into the box. In the game against Manchester City, Carlo Ancelotti in the first leg opted for a 4-4-2 formation. And part of the reason why he did that was even when Real Madrid loses possession, you'd still have some defensive structure in place. And one of the things he talked about after the game was that he wanted both players in the pivots to be closer to the center backs, to not create a lot of spaces between the midfield and the defensive line. But this game calls for something slightly different because Atleti is not a team that's likely to press you very high up the pitch. They tend to set a little deeper, although I can see in this game Diego Simeone trying to come up with a more aggressive style of playing, because if you guys remember the last time we faced them at the Bernabeu, they actually started the first half pressing pretty high up and it surprised Carlo Ancelotti. But when you're seeing how much success these other teams like Real Sociedad and Betis are having when they're pressing Real Madrid, then you might see that. But the weakness of this Atleti side is when you have really strong wingers who can exploit those 1v1 situations. But of course, if Jude Bellingham was available for this game, he would have been so critical in Real Madrid finding a solution. But I will get into some of the tactical solutions a little later in this video. Now, let's move to the second key to victory, and that is Real Madrid moving the ball more quickly. Now, one of the things that Real Madrid has struggled with when they face teams that sit in a deep block is they move the ball very slowly. And this allows the opposition to get into a very organized defensive block. And ultimately, Real Madrid then becomes a very left side heavy team, making it very difficult for them to find spaces to have a shot on target or create high quality chances. And that's why Carlo Ancelotti has tried to stress being a more vertical side, playing more long balls from the back with less emphasis on build-up play and less emphasis on control of the ball. Now, one of the things that's going to make this a little challenging is the lack of personnel in the team like Dani Ceballos, like Luka Modric, who's unlikely to start this game because he played the last game and he played the full 90 minutes. It's more than likely that Carlo Ancelotti will go with a double pivot of Tchouaméni and Camavinga. Although both of those players provide you with a lot of defensive solidity, undoubtedly there will be a lack of creativity in the midfield. And that's why one of the solutions that Carlo Ancelotti can go for in this game is trying to have more control, be more defensively organized, then look to deploy game-winning players like Luka Modric in the last 15-20 minutes of the game. Players like Endrick, players like Arda Güler. Think to all those Champions League times where we won games because the player off the bench came on, the 12th man made the difference. But during a time where Real Madrid is struggling when teams are in a transition, then Carlo will undoubtedly want to go with a more defensively solid solution. And that's why Raul Asensio is also likely to start this game over David Alaba. Now, the third key to victory is a really crucial one, and it's finding a replacement for Jude Bellingham to play that role as a physical presence in the box. The last time we faced Atleti, Jude was really instrumental in Real Madrid's comeback, but the overall quality of play, because every time both Rodrigo or Vinicius had the ball in the white space, Jude Bellingham was in the box. Not only was he a direct threat, but he also created space for Kylian. And that's undoubtedly something that Carlo would have looked at with Davide Ancelotti and realized that Real Madrid simply plays better when they have a guy who's occupying those spaces, creating more opportunities in space for Kylian. And that's why one of the things that I'm going to advocate for in this game is looking for a player like Endrick to play versus Brahim Diaz. Because even though Brahim Diaz is higher in the pecking order, it's more about player profiles and who's more suited in this game to play. When we saw that Jude Bellingham in that second half was constantly in the box every single time Rodrigo and Vinicius had the ball, it made a huge difference. It's just like when we played Bayern Munich in the Champions League when Joselu came on. Sometimes these types of players, they just cause havoc in the box. And maybe they might not score themselves, but they create that disruption that allows other attacking players to thrive. And it's just not Mbappe's instinct to attack the near post. So if you have him in there, if you have a guy like Endrick, that could make all the difference. Now, the fourth key to victory for Real Madrid in this game is stopping Atleti's transition opportunities from the wide space. If you look at all of the success that Atleti has had over the last few games where they've beaten the big sides, it's because they've had those transitions down the wings. That's their bread and butter. So it's not only about being defensively solid, but they have a sneaky way of being able to counterattack you and exploit those spaces behind your fullbacks. And although Real Madrid wasn't exploited in the last time against Lucas Vázquez, don't forget that Fede was there. And there's no better player in the world than Fede to cover the spaces behind your fullback. But if he's not available, then playing Lucas Vázquez, asking Tchouaméni to cover the space behind him, that's a big ask. Because Tchouaméni, although he's good at screening and blocking spaces and tackling and doing all those things that a pivot player will do, he doesn't have that recovery pace that Fede does. And so that's why in this game, it's a really big ask for you to play Lucas Vázquez. It's a two-legged tie. And of course, Carlo Ancelotti is going to win the first game at the Bernabeu. But if you can recover your team for the second leg, especially when last time you were unlucky not to win, and you didn't have Mbappe the last time you traveled away to Atleti, then you have to believe that you can win the second leg. You have to take on a more conservative approach in this first leg, especially with the players that are missing. Now, the fifth and final thing I'll talk about in this video, the key to victory, is really about the lineup and getting it right for Carlo Ancelotti. Now, one of the things with Carlo is he has his trusted players that he relies on that have brought him so much success. But prioritizing players like Modric over Arda right now, prioritizing David Alaba over Asensio, should tell you that Carlo Ancelotti has certain players in his mind that he trusts more than others, and it's very hard to break that cycle. And that's why in this match, he needs to get it right. Now, one of the biggest what-ifs for this game for us as Real Madrid fans is, will Fede be healthy and fit and back for the next game? But if he's not available, then definitely Kama has to play in the midfield. But one of the things I'm going to advocate for and say in this video is that I think it's finally time that Carlo Ancelotti do something so bold, and that is to start Arda Güler in the midfield with Camavinga and Tchouaméni. First of all, you're facing a team that sits in a deep block. He's one of the best finishers in the team. He's very decisive in the final third, and he can provide you so much quality on the ball. If you already have a bunch of players who are doing the defensive work for Arda, players like Kama and Chu, then why not prioritize him over Luka Modric, who's 39 years old? You'll always have Modric to come off the bench with his experience and knowledge. But it's time to trust the guys who are hungry, who have not been given their opportunity. This is how I would personally line up if I was Carlo Ancelotti for this clash. Overall, I think Real Madrid can get the job done just simply on the fact that it's the Champions League. These players know how important it is for Real Madrid to win major titles. I have no doubt in my mind that Vinicius, Mbappe, Rodrigo, these guys will step up in the big games for the rest of the season. Let me know what you guys think. My prediction is I think we will win this game. I think we win it 2-1. Ultimately, I think if Real Madrid can get past Atletico Madrid, we have a very good shout for winning the entire Champions League. This is one of the most difficult stylistic games for Real Madrid. How do you guys feel? Are you optimistic? Do you agree with some of the things that I outlined in this video? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Hala Madrid.